Hey, I've been going crazy, man. Please hit that subscribe button. 95% of y'all aren't subscribed. That's kind of lame if you ask me, but I digress. And we interviewed Matt Stevens. He is a bodybuilder and just an overall good guy, and he knows a lot about dating and relationships because he kind of went through that heartbreak, but he didn't take the more cynical route with the heartbreak. He's now delivering a message, a positive message to men in a way that is endearing and is much more encouraging, not the kind of fresh and fit that a lot of people don't seem to like. And also, the guy's freaking jacked, man. So anything about fitness and just the overall improvement of men, he's all for. So that's one thing that I love and adore about this man. So go check out his links down below if you're trying to get shredded and if you're trying to get over that heartbreak. You got whatever you need. Love y'all. Subscribe though, for real, because come on now.
So I watched this video a few times and something just didn't sit right. I said nothing about the approval of other men.
Welcome back to another episode of Important Miscellaneous Talks. I am your host, Glacier Crossrail. We are changing the world one podcast at a time. Please introduce yourself, our wonderful guest.
Hey guys, Matt Stevens. I appreciate y'all for having me. I'm a transformation coach. Mostly work with people online to try to get in shape and improve physical fitness and health and whatnot. I'm also a competitive bodybuilder. I have aspirations of becoming a professional bodybuilder, and I coach competitors as well. But I'm also kind of an advocate, of course, for mental health, and to also help men out. So I'm pretty big on that. But yeah, guys, I appreciate y'all having me today.
Got you. What made you want to get into fitness?
So I had basically lifted weights and was really active in health and fitness all growing up because I played football. And here in Alabama, they take football pretty seriously.
For real.
And yeah. And so I stopped lifting weights and everything after high school was over because I decided not to play college football and started playing music instead. I was a musician and I played guitar and sang, but also played the drums some. And so when I went to college, I joined a band and just started playing music around the town and basically started partying a little bit too much. And it got ahead of me, and I
felt that.
gained weight. I dropped out of school, and I basically hit rock bottom. Girlfriend broke up with me. You name it, it happened to me. And so I was faced with a decision to either, keep going down the wrong path or, start doing things right. And so I decided to get back into the gym, and the gym just helped me tremendously. Like, I really turned my life around, and I'm, thankful for going through all of that. But that's basically how I got into it. And that's why I'm passionate about it.
Got you. What can you define what a transformation coach is?
Yeah, so I mean, it's just like a fitness coach, basically. I mean, like, you are, wanting to go from point A to point B as far as your body is concerned. So you look the way you look now, and then you have the way that you want to look. So my job as a coach is to get you from what you look now to where you want to look, or to what you want to look like. So that's the gist of it.
So what's the usual for someone that's a newbie and that comes in? What is the usual time frame it takes for them to get to where they want to be?
Well, it just depends on their current circumstances. Because I mean, I've had clients who they're somewhat lean, but they've never had a six-pack before, but all they have to do is lose 10 pounds and then they can see their six-pack. But then I've had clients who have been 80 pounds overweight. And so, of course, that takes a little bit longer for them to get their bodies to where they are, to the state that they want it to be in. So it really just depends on what your the circumstances you come to me with.
I get a six-pack for the longest, man. I don't know. Maybe I like snacks too much. That's probably it, right?
Yeah. I mean, snacking can get you.
Yo, it's winning. Like snacks are up like 100 to zip. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
a blowout. It's a blowout. How did you get into the bodybuilding space?
So I got, like when I got myself in shape and I pushed myself as far as I could on my own knowledge. And then I had to hire a coach. And I started working with my coach and I was like, well, you know what? I kind of want to compete on stage and just set a goal to be able to do that. And I had dated a girl previously to that who was just like, I can't stand it when guys do that and whatnot, but I secretly wanted to do it. And so after we after we broke up, that kind of gave me the green light to be able to go do it. And so, like I said, I started working with my coach and he helped me get past the plateau that I had hit myself. I didn't know how to get past it, but he helped me get past it and got me to the point where I could step on stage confidently. And but yeah, it just turned in. It was first just a personal goal of mine. Like I wanted to do it just to get the growth and to say that I had did it. But I fell in love with it. So it just kind of went on from there.
What are some myths and misconceptions that people have about working out or being like a coach such as you are, or just being a bodybuilder?
Oh gosh, there's so many of them. Where do I start? Just off the top of my head, are you talking about general fitness myths, or are you talking about myths just regarding like maybe bodybuilding stereotypes? Or
Oh, we can do both. We can do both.
I mean, fitness myths. There's so many of them. Just off the top of my head, I can think of, there's a myth that says don't eat anything past 7 o'clock at night. I mean, I understand the point of that, but it doesn't mean that everything you eat past 7 o'clock turns into fat. It's basically just cutting yourself off. So, okay, well, I can't have any more calories after 7. So there's kind of a misconception there. Another one is carbs are the enemy. Carbs are not the enemy. In fact, I would argue that fat is much easier to overeat than carbs are. But if you combine both fat and carbs, that's like a death sentence, because fat is what makes everything taste good. Like the fatty steaks taste good. The best desserts have the most fat in them typically. Yeah, so I mean, anything that has most fat, people love. People love avocados. People like whole milk better than skim milk. It tastes better because of the fat content in it. And so fat isn't necessarily the enemy either. But also there's a misconception that you have to be in the gym every day in order to get results. So that's just not true. You can go to the gym 2 or 3 times per week and still be able to hit your goals. Now, are you going to be able to get there just as quickly? No, but you don't have to go every day. I mean, I think the sweet spot is anywhere between 3 times per week and 5 times per week. And then, there's another one. We could even go into sleep. There's a myth that you can adapt to a low amount of sleep. Like if you only sleep 5 hours per night, that's not true. In fact, you're doing a lot of damage by not getting that sleep.
I'm trying to tell people this, man. Him specifically.
Yeah. Here's the thing is, and I get the idea behind it. Like you don't want to sleep because you want to be able to get more done. But if you go to sleep, you'll be able to get more done within a shorter amount of time because you are thinking better and you have a higher attention span, and you have greater focus, and your cognitive skills are just increased. But I mean, those are just a few, but we could keep going.
Got you. So outside looking in, I hear oftentimes that the bodybuilders take a lot of steroids. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, it depends on who it is. Some guys can get up there and compete without using anything, but most everybody is using. And there are even people who aren't competitive bodybuilders that are using. And steroids are actually pretty prevalent in society. So it's like pretty common that you just go to a local gym and you'll find somebody there who's taking something.
Okay, and that's out of curiosity, hoping not getting too personal. Is that the route that you would prefer to take or avoid?
So I have before, but I got on TRT like a few years ago, like after my first competition, because I did my first competition naturally, but I just felt terrible after that. I gained a bunch of weight and couldn't get my strength back in the gym, and just it kind of messed me up hormonally a little bit. So I just was just like, screw it, I'm just going to go ahead and get on TRT, and that made it a little bit easier to just take it even just a step further. So I mean, I have done it before, and I don't mind admitting that. I don't encourage anybody to do it, but what I do tell younger guys is if they do it, don't be stupid with it and wait. Try to max out your natural capabilities before you even decide to take that step, because I waited until I was like 26 to do it. And so, before I even did it, I was squatting 560 pounds. I was benching over, I think I was benching over 350 at the time. And I had over a 550 pound deadlift too. This is all natural. And so like, I couldn't get past those numbers, or at least I probably could have, but I had that competition. When you're in competition mode, you are not trying to max out and hit the highest numbers.
Yeah, I hear that that's something that happens a lot, where some people enter these competitions naturally and then realize that they simply just can't compete, and they end up having to go that route.
That's what I did. I was up on stage, and like, here's the thing is, a lot of guys, you can't necessarily tell if you've never taken it before and you don't know what to look for, you can't tell that there's guys up there taking anything. Even the skinnier looking guys are taking something. And so it has a lot to do with genetics. Like you have different classes in bodybuilding. So you have physique, which is the guys that are wearing the board shorts or the bathing suit trunks. Then you have classic physique, which is kind of in between bodybuilding, which is the last one, of course, and physique. So it's kind of like an in between. And then, of course, you have bodybuilding as the third one. And so typically the physique guys are the smaller ones. Physique guys have to just resemble like a beach body, like an ideal beach body.
Like a Greek guy.
So their goal is to not get as big as possible.
Okay. Did you experience any roid rage or any other downsides?
That's a myth.
Roid rage is a myth, really?
Yeah. Here's the thing is, if you have emotional issues, you just have emotional issues.
Got you.
Like, I've never once, in fact, I feel like I'm calmer being on testosterone replacement therapy, and I have a lot more control of myself. I've never had a fit of rage or anything. Like, I've been hungry and been hangry, like where like I'm starving because I'm in a competition prep and I'm not allowed to eat much food and I get irritable, but I've never snapped or anything like that. And I know a lot of guys who've always remained real cool too. The whole roid rage thing is it's not true. Basically, it's if you don't have any emotional self-control or you're not a calm person, you're going to have those fits with or without it.
So what about it's going to sound weird, but they say if you take roids, it makes your penis small. Is that true? Or
no? I was gonna ask that next.
No, but they also say that they shrink your nuts, but that hasn't been true either. And I think some guys may react to it a little differently than others. But no, it hasn't been the case. So
okay, wow. I didn't know you were a part-time comedian. Wow. So what would you say is the end goal of your body? Because at a certain point, one may wonder, when is being big, good enough?
Well, here's the thing: is my goal is to compete as a professional body,
Okay.
and I have no desire to be 300 pounds. I just think that would be just too much for me. If it took me if that was the standard, I would be like, no. Because it would take away from the quality of my life. But I do love it. And my goal is to just get the most balanced, I think, body that I could possibly get. Like, I don't want to be massive. I think bodybuilding was meant to be like, who can come up with the most beautiful body, basically. So I do it from the beauty and the aesthetic aspect of it rather than the mass monster type aspect of it, which we've seen a lot here in the last however many years. I have no desire to be a quote unquote mass monster. I want to build a beautiful body, basically.
So you don't think you're massive now?
I'm pretty big, yeah.
Yeah. You're like a silverback.
Yeah, no, I know that I'm bigger than most guys. So, and but I'm still like, I'll meet tons of other professionals at like expos and different events and whatnot. And there's guys who just make me look small, and so like I'm just like, okay, well, I mean, I think I have a good amount of size to me, but like I said, there's guys who kind of dwarf me a little bit.
How tall are you and your weight?
I'm 5'10", and I'm sitting at like 246 pounds in the morning.
In the morning? Wow.
Yeah.
Dog, what? I'm 210, but I'm like a foot taller than you. Damn.
Oh yeah, you're a tall guy.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say is the best tip for gaining muscle?
So, well, there's a few things that go into it. So, not only should you lift weights, but you also need to make sure that you're eating a balanced diet. And when I say a balanced diet, I mean eating enough protein, carbs, and fats. And you also need to be in what they call a caloric surplus. So basically what a caloric surplus means is you have a certain amount of calories that you burn every day. It's called your total daily energy expenditure. So you burn this amount of calories every day, but if you eat this amount of calories, then you grow. But if you eat this amount of calories, then you lose weight because your body then has to make up for that deficit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so basically you want to have that surplus where you're eating more than what your body really needs. So then your body can take those excess resources and build muscle with them. And then the last one is sleep. Get your sleep.
Muscle.
Yeah, sleep is actually where you build muscle. You don't build muscle in the gym. So in the gym, when you're working out, you break your muscle tissue down. And then your body has to rebuild it. But when it rebuilds it back stronger and bigger than before. So it does it a little bit at a time. So every day that you go into the gym and every time you go to sleep at night, you're building a little bit more every time. So it builds up over time very slowly.
So what about losing weight? Would that be the opposite or the same?
Yes. So like I said, if you have this amount of calories that you burn every day, well, then you want to eat less than that. So then your body has to make up for that deficit, that little spot right there. Basically what your body's going to do at that point is it's going to pull from your fat storage and say, hey, we need more energy than what you're giving us through your food. So let's pull it from somewhere else. Typically that's from fat storage.
What would you say is your number one tip for dieting and eating right?
Number one, it depends on what the goals are, but if it's just general advice, I'd say eat a well-balanced diet of mostly whole food ingredients. So I'd say at least 80% whole foods.
How long did it take for you to start seeing the kind of results that you wanted to see in the weight room?
Well, it kind of it depends, because my goals have changed over time. So like when I first got into the weight room, my goal was to just gain muscle back. And that happened, I think, fairly quickly, just because I had lifted all throughout high school and middle school and high school for training for football and whatnot. And so that happened fairly quickly. But then I got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I want to lose fat. So I wanted a six pack. And so I did what I could on my own. And like I mentioned before, I hit a plateau and had to hire a coach to help me get over that hump. So I'd say that from the time that I started, from that plateau I was telling you all about, to getting a six pack was probably a good 3 or 4 months.
How many times a week were you in the gym during that time?
How many days per week?
Yeah.
I think I was doing 5 days. I think I was doing 5.
And how many hours each day?
1 tops.
Interesting. Was that an intense hour or?
Yes. So that's one of the misconceptions that people have, is that they have to spend so much time in the gym. But here's the thing is, like, I go into the gym today and spend the least amount that I've ever spent in there, because I'm working out so intensely that I don't need to spend an hour. So like, for example, yesterday I did shoulders and I was in and out in about 40 minutes. So got in, got it done, and got out. And of course, there's little tips and tricks and hacks, or whatever you want to call them, that I've learned over time that have allowed me to do that. But there have been times where I just did a ton of volume, and volume is sets times reps times weight. So that's the total amount of weight that you've lifted throughout the entire workout. And you can go all the way up to 100,000 pounds, with how many reps that you're putting. Because if you rep out 100 pounds with 100 reps, that's 10,000 pounds right there. So I used to do very volume heavy workouts. So I'd be in the gym for an hour and a half, but I realized that that's not necessary. So
are cheat meals necessary?
No, they're not necessary. But it just depends on the person, because typically what cheat meals are basically like more of a psychological relief. So you've been dieting for so long and you've been really disciplined and you've made a lot of progress, and you would like to have just a break, so you throw in like a cheat meal, and just to give yourself like, that psychological relief, but it doesn't do anything as far as fat loss is concerned. Maybe it may lower cortisol, which may, indirectly help with the fat loss aspect of it. But like I said before, it's not necessary. The only necessary, or at least the only necessary things that you need to lose fat are a caloric deficit, and make sure you're eating enough protein and carbs and fats.
Do you stress the importance of water?
Yes, it is definitely important to stay hydrated.
What would you say? What would you say is one of the bigger things keeping you striving for greatness? Because I can argue that you've met a lot of your goals that you set for yourself in the past. So what is the thing that keeps, driving you to better yourself?
I mean, I have a pretty big aspiration of becoming a pro. you know, and when you become a pro, that's really an elite club. Like, you are in the elite of the elite as far as bodies are concerned. And so, you know, being able to say that I'm a pro and that I worked for that and that I earned that, it would be just super rewarding in itself. But not only that, but I love the process. Like, I love going to the gym. I love dieting. I love every aspect of it. And so I think that that is more important than the end result itself. The people who make it are the people who love the process rather than the reward. So it's all about wanting to do what it takes to get there. If you don't love doing what it takes, you're not going to get it.
That's a very good point. And I listen to a lot of motivational stuff. And this one lady mentioned how, like, a lot of people are manifesting things the wrong way because they're manifesting the end goal, which psychologically kind of gives you a reward, an unearned reward, right? She mentions that you should be manifesting the process, doing the things that you need to do in order to get there, the hard work, the extra hours, putting in the pain. So
Yes.
definitely, I like that you said that.
Yeah, because here's the thing: is like I used to be in sales, and one of the things that you would have to do is make phone calls every day to your prospects, and that is not fun. That's something that you have, or at least for me personally, I would have to force myself to do. I never woke up and was like, oh yeah, I get to, you know, make phone calls to random people today to try to set up appointments. That's not a fun thing to do. You get hung up on, you get people that get angry at you for calling them and all that. So it's not an easy thing to do. It takes a special kind of person to want to get up and make those phone calls. But if you're not willing to make those phone calls, you're not going to make any money. And I knew a lot of people who they got up and they made those phone calls every day. And you know what? They were wealthy.
So let's get into the red pill talk. What do you think is the biggest issue with the dating scene today?
Lack of the biggest. I'd say a lack of values, a lack of morals, and
on both ends, men and women.
Probably on both ends, but I'd say that the fault lies. It's tough to really say, but here's what I will say is, if men straightened up, women would straighten up.
How would you suggest that men straighten up?
So that's kind of a complicated issue, but here's the problem is there is a very, like, a lack of positive male role models for men that teach men exactly how to be men. And so a lot of us are out there just trying to learn things on our own. And a lot of that responsibility falls on every man's father. But not even every man's father is even in the person's life.
Yeah.
Also, the ones that are in their lives might not even be doing a good job, which is still very common. So you have maybe 10% of men that have a good dad that teaches them exactly how to be a man and how to hold their responsibilities, and that are still married to that boy's mother, who that boy can watch how a healthy relationship is supposed to work while they're growing up. There's a lot of us who didn't get that. I know that my parents were divorced. I never got to see that healthy, relationship and how everything was supposed to work. I saw, not the best example. And I don't want to say that my dad didn't do a good job, but my dad's circumstances were very different than, other people's. But you also have divorces and women that don't allow the child to see the father, even though the father wants to be a good father. There's so many variables that go into it, but men just have to, there has to be something that men can tap into that can show them exactly what they need to do and how they need to act. and can give them a goal. They like, there needs to be like a process men could go through that could teach them how to be a man, and then give them that validation that they are a man by the time they get through it. You know what I mean? Because in the past, you know, you had thousands of hundreds of tribes or whatever it is that had a manhood initiation ceremony for boys. You know, the boys, when they were born, they stayed with their mother until, you know, maybe around the time when puberty hit. Then the men of the tribe would take that boy and put him through a, you know, ceremony or ritual or whatever it is, where, and every tribe, of course, was different, but the boy would have to go through trials, tribulations, or pain, or whatever it was that the men required them to do. And once the boy was able to make it through that challenge, then the men would say, congratulations, you're a man now. And that boy would get the validation of being a man. He could say, okay, I have all these other men that have validated me. Because a lot of guys don't realize that, but masculinity is a lot about masculinity is it being bestowed to you from other men. You know, when other men respect you, when other men recognize you and want to be like you or can relate to you, that's huge for men, you know, and that's why it's important for us to have male friends. But yeah, there's so much that goes into to men today and masculinity in general. But that's what it's going to take, because we have a large lack of masculinity among men today.
All this knowledge that you have now, when did that hit you? When did you realize that? Or yeah, like, how was your experience into manhood?
So, you know, like I'd probably say that my situation or circumstances may have been better at certain times than other times. But my main issue was being able to make relationships work. And I was always like, I could never, like in high school, I had like one girlfriend and she cheated on me. And then I didn't have another girlfriend until college. And then she cheated on me. And then I had another girlfriend in college. So I went through two pretty bad breakups in college. And it was after the second breakup that I found the red pill. Is that what y'all are talking about, the red pill?
Yeah, to some degree. We watch a lot of the content, but I wouldn't call myself one of those like fresh type of guys, you know.
Yeah, because that kind of helped me. That's kind of what pushed me to go to the gym, is the red pill stuff. They said get in the gym and work up and get muscles again, and I was like, okay, I'll do that. So that, I have to give credit where it's due. That's kind of where I got that. And so, you know, that helped in that aspect. But I read through the red pill and started learning. And of course, when you read through the red pill stuff, it kind of makes you angry at women. Like, and I didn't realize it until later, but a lot of those guys are angry at women. They're very angry. And I eventually, through the next relationship that I had after the whole red pill, I realized that all the advice that I took from those guys was total crap. And that's not how relationships should work. And so I continued to read more books about relationships and about masculinity and femininity, and realized that, oh, okay, you know what? This is where I went wrong. And okay, I won't ever do that again, because you can replay certain things in your mind, you know, in relationships and mistakes that you make, or at least I did. And so I kind of pieced it all together, and that's basically how I learned. I was like, okay, well, men are supposed to do this and they're supposed to do this, and I was like, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do then. I got back into school and started to gather my ambitions back. You know, I started to, you know, read more about stoicism, which it's really not about stoicism either. It's more about being comfortable with your emotions and being comfortable to express them when and how you want, no matter what anybody thinks about it.
That's a
And
level.
so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It takes a real level of confidence to do that.
Yeah, like, because here's the thing, like, if we'll just bring up vulnerability as a subject here, because there's a lot of controversy around that word. And so men often claim that they don't want to be vulnerable with a woman because that woman will either use it against them in the future, or it will turn her off.
We're all
Or
hurt, man. We're all hurt. We're talking through our hurt.
yeah, and so here's what I learned is a lot of those guys, the times that they were vulnerable, it was because they were wanting something from the woman. They were wanting some type of validation. They either wanted comfort, or they were trying to get something for being vulnerable.
So they were vulnerable for disingenuous reasons, you believe?
Yeah, I think subconsciously.
Mm.
A lot of them are, and I know that I was for a few times as well.
So what would you think a genuine reason would be to be vulnerable then?
It's doing what you want to do when you want to do it, no matter what anybody thinks. So it's being outcome independent. So here's the thing. If I had like a death in the family, and it was somebody I really cared about, and I started crying about it, I don't care what my woman thinks about it. I really don't. But if she wants to hold that against me, I will welcome her to do that. She can walk out the door, or I can walk out the door. Because if she wants to hold that against me, she's not the right woman for me. And that's what a lot of these men don't realize. Be vulnerable. Be vulnerable quick. I mean, don't like spill your heart out like on the first date, like, but don't be afraid to hold back. Be genuine, and let her see that, so that she can react how she really would react, so you can see the real her and really know who she is. So that way, because here's the thing, vulnerability is very polarizing. So polarizing means it either gets one option or the other, yes or no, exception or rejection, love or hate. So when you're vulnerable, she has to react to you, and she can either accept it and appreciate it, or she can hate it and be turned off by it and want to, be away from it. So once you get to that point, then you really know. Because if she sticks around and she still respects you after that, dude, she's a good girl, and you won't know, but you won't know that until you let your guard down and go ahead. Because here's the thing, y'all. At the end of the day, love is risky. You got to be comfortable with taking that risk as a man.
That's a fact. That's a fact. And I've noticed that, because it's no secret that women are an emotional creature. So I've noticed that some men will try to be more vulnerable to appeal to that emotion in women, to kind of bring them closer to them. So, but that's not outcome independent. That's not for a genuine reason. You should be vulnerable on your own accord and looking for nothing external in return.
Yes.
Got you.
Yeah, because that's the thing is, you can't have any expectations. Like, if you expect her to react a certain way and she doesn't, you're going to be disappointed. But if you just put it out there and says, hey, whatever happens, happens, that right there is masculine, is letting something happen and not being attached to it. Yeah, it's okay to be upset that she thought that way and that she reacted the way that she did. It's totally okay to be upset about that. But that at that point, you need to make a grown-up decision and either decide to tell her goodbye, or, I don't know, try to grovel, and who wants to grovel and try to make up for something, a loss or whatever it is,
Got you. How do you feel when you hear the term independent woman?
I think that it is It's definitely a misconception among women. Strong and independent woman usually it usually means that she's bitter. A strong and independent woman doesn't have to tell you she's strong and independent. You know what I mean?
An alpha male that has to tell you he's alpha.
Yeah. So a strong and independent woman who has to tell you has some insecurities and she has some fears.
I'm clipping this right here.
Yeah.
I'm clipping this right here, man. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so because here's the thing is men who love women don't care if they try to compete with them. And women who love men don't care to compete with men. So like a lot of women think that they need to be strong like a man, but that's not the case at all. Feminine strength is just a different strength. You know what I mean?
I know, but on paper, it doesn't sound very strong at all. Being soft, feminine, agreeable, cooperative. It doesn't sound on paper. It does not sound like it's equal to a masculine strength and power.
Yeah, but the thing is, it is, because here's the thing. A lot of these women who claim to be strong and independent that's also followed by who don't need no man, And so to me, there's a fear behind that. Why do you say that you don't need a man? Why do you have to make that known? It's because they're fearful of being hurt by a man. So it takes a strong woman to let her guard down and let a man in, and to say, or at least let him know, like, you're worthy enough for my submission. And the man should be worthy. A woman shouldn't just submit to anybody. She should submit to a man who is worthy of her submission. And it takes strength for a woman to do that. So I think it's a massive misconception.
Would you say that women in general are feminine for the most part?
Yes.
Really?
I'd say that femininity comes more natural.
In age.
Well, here's the thing. The internet and media, because you've heard the term, or at least the phrase, that the loud get the most attention.
Yes, the good women are awfully quiet. Yes.
Yes. So I think most women are actually feminine, and you have these masculine ones who are out there making all this noise and they're getting all the attention. Because here's the thing is, femininity comes more naturally to women than masculinity is to men.
I agree with that.
So masculinity for men has to be earned. Femininity for women can be ruined. A woman is born with her femininity. She just has to protect it. That's it. But for a man, he's not born with his masculinity. He has to earn it, and it has to be forged. So
how do you earn it?
How do you earn it? You earn it by gaining the respect of other men, challenging yourself, becoming stronger, pushing your boundaries, those types of things. It's hard to become a masculine man. And also learning to control yourself and to not react to your emotions according to your emotions. There's a lot more to it, but just off the top of my head, that's what comes to me.
Is there a such thing as toxic masculinity, and why?
I don't think so. I think the toxic masculinity is just a manipulative term to abuse men, and I think that it implies that there's something wrong with every man. But here's the thing: is all those toxic traits that come from men typically are from men who lack masculinity. It's not toxic masculinity; it is the lack of masculinity that is toxic.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
So, like I mentioned before, where you have to do those challenging things, you have to gain respect from men, you have to become stronger, you have to be able to control yourself and to express yourself and not be insecure. Insecurity is not masculine. So, being secure with oneself. But a lot of these men out here who are toxic are insecure. That is not masculine. So,
because I was gonna ask, okay, toxic masculinity. What is toxic masculinity? What would be considered toxic masculinity? Like, for example.
So what they're referring to is like a guy who
Shows rage, right?
let's say that a girl wanted to, I don't know, maybe she wanted to go hang out with her friends, but her guy is like, no, you're not allowed to go do that, or whatever. He's being controlling. That's probably a toxic trait that they're referring to. Because when you're masculine, you don't have to control your woman. If she does something that you don't like her doing, you communicate that and you say, hey, you're still allowed to go do this. But if you continue to go do this thing that I don't like, then you can say bye to me. You know, I don't want to change you. You can't change anybody. But a masculine man realizes that. He says, listen, I can't change you and I don't want to change you. I want you to continue going to do the things that you want to do. But if that's what you're going to do, I don't want to be a part of it. And he walks. He's not afraid to walk. So men today have a problem with setting boundaries. They have a problem with getting
Scarcity
attacked.
mindset.
What's that?
Scarcity mindset.
Yeah. No, that's, insecurity. So the abundant mindset, that's masculine, man. That's definitely masculine. But it's setting boundaries and not being afraid to enforce them. It's setting standards and abiding by them.
Gotcha. So how would you suggest a man go from a scarcity to abundance mindset?
It's easier said than done for sure. But for me, it took time. It took me being happy with myself and loving myself first. And I know that kind of sounds cliche, but it's true. And so you have to build a life that you love as a man. Do things that you love doing. Have a purpose. Have a mission in life. That's so important for a man.
I think so.
What's that?
I think so as well. I think that's really something that should be pushed a lot more, is purpose and striving for that.
Yeah, because you have so many guys that are still living at home with their moms. They're playing video games downstairs and they have no ambitions. And they're just at a dead end, and they lack purpose. They lack a mission. And then they wonder, why am I so unhappy? Why am I so miserable in my life? Well, it's because you don't have anything to dedicate yourself to that really matters to you. So it is super important for a man's validation to have a purpose, to have a God-given purpose in life, something that he can pour himself into that will pour back into him. Because here's the problem, is a lot of men try to get validation from women, but women, and even other people in general, not just women, but other men too. Other men, when you are trying to gain validation from people notice it subconsciously and they look down on it. They see it as being weak. They don't want the responsibility. They don't want the responsibility to have to give you validation. You know what I mean? So when a woman realizes that she has to be a source of validation for you, then she subconsciously knows that she's got power over you. And she does not want that power. She wants you to have your own validation because she wants validation from you. She don't want to have to give validation to you. It's the other way around,
Got you. Well, those are all the questions I have for you. Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to us. Thank you.
No, absolutely, man. I appreciate y'all having me for sure.